It's JBL Xtreme 3. It's very, very exciting because there's a firmware update. We was on 0.1.3.0, so now we're on 0.1.3.1. Oh, no, we're not on 0.1. We've jumped all the way up to 0.188. It's always interesting to me what came in between all the muck-ups, We've had enough muck-ups that JBL didn't mind you getting. You can imagine the muck-ups JBL don't want you to get. But, you go into the update, and what does it say? What I wasn't expecting was bugs fixed. Never seen that before. Bugs fixed, performance improvements. But hang on a second. There's a second thing down there. Because JBL, 14 years they've been asking for EQ in the app, and they're now saying EQ adjustment is available for the JBL Xtreme 3 after the Xtreme 3 firmware upgrade. If you didn't get that, if you thought you could just suddenly turn on your speaker and get the EQ without doing the firmware update, you was wrong. And it was really handy that JBL pointed that out, because that caught me out. I thought magically I could have my speaker off, turn it on, and it would just update, but it didn't. So I'm going to do the update. And what am I going to do in this video is tell you, was there any difference in the sound? That's what I want to know, because historically JBL have not been good with their firmware updates, not least because they have multiple versions of the same speaker. If you didn't know, look at the first two letters of your serial number, tell you what version it is, and they sound different. Some of them a little bit different, some of them quite a bit different. Different materials, some will float, some won't float. Things like that should not be occurring. So the thing is, any changes in sound, and then we'll have a look at the EQ. We'll mess around with the EQ. It's getting really exciting. So first thing, I'm going to measure frequency response before the firmware update and after the firmware update. And the thing to remember is, these are sine wave sweeps. These are single tones, real-time limiters. And that's the thing about all these modern Bluetooth speakers, real-time digital signal processing. When you have complex, big, bass-heavy tracks, it's going to do different things than it will do with a single sine wave. But as an indicator of what we may expect, frequency response measurements.
Before the firmware update, after the firmware update, before, after, possibly a slight difference, probably within margin of error, 100% volume before, after. Again, a slight difference. Nothing your ear is really going to pick up, I wouldn't have said. If we overlay them, 66% volume, a tad less in the mids before the update, 100% volume, fractionally suggesting the same thing, but well within margin of error. You're never really going to hear that difference, in my opinion, even if that's a real difference.
Well, so far so good. It doesn't look like there's any differences. If there's any differences, it may be tiny, 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 but that's with a single tone. That's a sine wave sweep, just an indicator of what may happen in the real world, but it's real world tracks that would tell you what has happened. And so I will now do a comparison at 60% before and after.
Who cares where we gotta be? You know you'll have a good time wherever you're with me. Let's take it. I drag you out your mind, and there are days I hate you, but baby, you're still mine. And then we have the best times, no matter what we do. And even when we don't, there's nobody I'd rather choose. Let's take it slow. Where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it.
Before the update, after the update, my measurements suggest, if anything, there's slightly less bass, half a decibel after The update at 50 Hertz, that's at 66%. Total bass 16.9 versus 16.3 of a decibel. It's within margin of error. It's possible. It's really there. Mids and highs identical.
Possibly, maybe it's within margin of error. Maybe that's suggesting a tiny bit less in the bass. Are they allowing for headroom when it comes to the EQ? Don't forget, we haven't messed with the EQ yet. This is all in default mode. Let's try maximum volume, where we will really see what is going on with ultimate headroom.
Side of the room, place was filled, but all I could see was you. You're magnetic, captivating, and you know it's true. Sent a smile and you started to make your way through the crowd. It grew so loud, you and I didn't even care. I've loved you since I met you. Did I ever tell you that?
Maximum volume, to all intents and purposes, absolutely identical within any margin of an error in terms of the measurements, suggesting a fraction less in the bass after the update. In terms of that deep bass, we're talking 0.2 of a decibel. It's absolutely nothing. You're never going to hear that different, even if it's real.
Again, tiny, tiny changes that you probably never hear with your ear, that you can just about measure, that may be real or may be within margin of error. Obviously, I've updated, and a fraction of a movement in placing the speaker again to be recorded can make those differences. The frequency response actually showed the difference in other areas. So, to all intents and purposes, even if they're on those measurements, if there was any difference in this particular speaker, they're not going to be something you hear. Now, what you really want to know is, bloody hell, we've now got EQ in a JBL Xtreme 3. Okay, now we know why it's extremely priced, because you're going to get the most incredible equalizer experiences. Oh no, we're not going to get the most incredible equalizer experience there's ever been. Do you know why? Oh, because it looks like a Sony thing. We've got 3 sliders. We've got a bass, a mids, and a treble. That's not looking promising. But hey ho, you've got, well, we don't know. Are they decibel adjustments? We seem to have a 1 and a 2, and then bits in between. I don't like the look of that. But do you know what? The whole point of this video was to tell you what happened from firmware 0.1.3.0 when you went to 0.1.8.8. And what happened was I could measure no difference in the actual sound. Maybe, possibly tiny, tiny differences. The bugs were fixed, whatever bugs they were. And hey ho, a 3-band slider. All we've ever asked for is a 3-band slider, because no, it's not what we asked for, is it? We wanted a Soundcore like multi-band proper graphic equalizer. But you know what? I'm going to go over that in another video. Yes, I'm going to make you watch another video. Watch some more ads, and I'll have another 20 pence in revenue, and I'll be able to go out, and I won't be able to do much with that. That's all life. But hey ho, I'll see you in that video.
I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I ain't about that. I ain't about that life.